I was raised by books. Never. I don't ever give up. I would have to be dead or completely incapacitated. For my part, I will never give up. And I mean never. I think it is possible for ordinary people to choose to be extraordinary. This is something that is important to get done, and we are should just keep doing it or die trying. You guys are the magicians of the 21st century. Don't let anything hold you back. Imagination is the limit. Go out there and create some magic. Mars would just to be the greatest adventure ever and very exciting. And I think we need things in life that are exciting and inspiring. It can't just be about solving some awful problem. There have to be reasons to get up in the morning. Take risks now. Do something bold. You won't regret it. When something is important enough, you do it even if the odds aren't in your favor. When I was a little kid, I was really scared of the dark. But then I came to understand, okay, dark just means the absence of photons in the visible wavelength 400 to 700 nanometers. Then I thought, well, it's really silly to be afraid of a lack of photon. Then I wasn't afraid of the dark anymore after that. I feel fear quite strongly. It's not as though I just have the absence of fear. I feel it quite strongly. But there are times when something is important enough. You believe in it enough. Then you do it in spite of the fear. People should not think, I feel fear about this and therefore I should not do it. It's normal to feel fear. There would have to be something mentally wrong if you don't feel fear. If you just accept the probabilities, then that diminishes fear. You want to have a future where you are expecting things to be better, not one when you are expecting things to be worse. Good ideas are always crazy until they are not. Constantly think about how you could be doing things better. Keep questioning yourself. The first step is to establish that something is possible. Then probability will occur. Some people don't like change, but you need to embrace change if the alternative is disaster. The duty of a leader is to serve their people, not for the people to serve them. Really like what you do. Don't listen to the little man. Do something important. Focus on signal over noise. Look for problem solvers. Attract great people. Work super hard. Do not delude yourself into thinking something's working when it is not, or you gonna get fixated on a bad solution. I could either watch it happen or be part of it. Failure is an option here. If things are not failing, you are not innovating enough. People should pursue what they are passionate about. I always have optimism, but I am realistic. It was not with the expectation of great success that I started Tesla or SpaceX. It's just that I thought they were important enough to do anyway. People work better when they know what the goal is and why. It is important that people look forward to coming to work in the morning and enjoy working. Persistence is very important. You should not give up unless you are forced to give up. I would just question things. Constantly think about how you could be doing things better. Keep questioning yourself. I don't have a crystal ball for the global economy. I would really appreciate it if I could borrow that crystal ball. One day, it seems like the world economy is falling apart, and the next day, everything is fine. I don't know what the hell is going on. To be totally frank, I wish I did. I really see a path to a 5x increase in the value of the company, maybe 10x. But where things go along the way, the trials and tribulation and the moods of the market, one cannot predict. So the old quotation of buy and hold is right. Don't be afraid of new arenas. You have to be pretty driven to make it happen. Otherwise, you will just make yourself miserable. Life is too short for long term grudges. If you need inspiring words, don't do it. There is a tremendous bias against taking risk. Everyone is trying to optimize their ass covering. You want to be extra rigorous about making the best possible thing you can. Find everything that's wrong with it and fix it. Seek negative feedback, particularly from friends. When you struggle with a problem, that's when you understand it. I think it is very important to have a feedback loop where you are constantly thinking about what you have done and how you could be doing it better. I tend to approach things from a physics framework, and physics teaches you to reason from first principles rather than by analogy. When Henry Ford made cheap, reliable cars, people said, nah, what's wrong with a horse? That was a huge bet he made, and it worked. I don't create companies for the sake of creating companies, but to get things done. My motivation for all my companies has been to be involved in something that I thought would have a significant impact on the world. When I started SpaceX, I thought that the most likely outcome was a failure, and I think to have any other expectation would have been irrational. The odds of me coming into the rocket business, not knowing anything about rockets, not having ever built anything, I would have to be insane if I thought the odds were in my favor. Most people can learn a lot more than they think they can. They sell themselves short without trying. If you go back a few hundred years, what we take for granted today would seem like magic. Being able to talk to people over long distances, to transmit images, flying, accessing vast amount of data like an oracle. These are all things that would have been considered magic a few hundred years ago. If you are trying to create a company, it's like baking a cake. You have to have all the ingredients in the right proportion. We are running the most dangerous experiment in history right now, which is to see how much carbon dioxide the atmosphere can handle before there is an environmental catastrophe. The idea of lying on a beach as my main thing just sounds like the worst. It sounds horrible to me. I would have to be on serious drugs. I would be super duper bored. I like high intensity. Engineering is the closest thing to magic that exists in the world. Many things are improbable, only a few are impossible. If humanity does not land on Mars in my lifetime, I would be very disappointed. I'm not trying to be anyone's savior. I'm just trying to think about the future and not be sad. The Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy taught me the tough thing is figuring out what questions to ask. But that once you do that, the rest is really easy. Deciding what work to do, when I was in college, I just thought, well, what are the things that are most likely to affect the future of humanity at a macro level? And it just seemed like there would be the internet, sustainable energy, making life multiplanetary, and then genetics and AI. I do think a good framework for thinking is physics. You know, the first principles reasoning. What I meant by that is boiled down to their fundamental truths and reason up from there as opposed to reasoning by analogy. Through most of our life, we get through life by reasoning by analogy, which essentially means kind of copying what other people do with slight variations. And you have to do that, otherwise, mentally, you won't be able to get through that day. But when you want to do something new, you have to apply the physics approach. A lot of kids are in school puzzled as to why they are there. I think if you can explain the why of things, then that make a huge difference to people's motivation. Then they understand purpose. I think most people can learn a lot more than they think they can. They sell themselves short without trying. It is important to view knowledge as a sort of semantic tree. Make sure you understand the fundamental principles, the trunk and big branches before you get into the leaves detail, or there is nothing for them to hang on to. If you read books and talk to expert, you will pick it up pretty quickly. Just read books and talk to people, particularly books. I think the important principle is to be dedicated to learning what you need to know, whether that is in school or empirically. Allow people to progress at the fastest pace that they can or be interested in each subject. It seems like a really obvious thing. The value of the truth. I care a lot about the truth of things and trying to understand the truth of things. I think that's important. If you are going to come up with some solution, then the truth is really, really important. You are not going to create revolutionary cars or rockets on 40 hours a week. It just won't work. Colonizing Mars isn't going to happen on 40 hours a week. A small group of very technically strong people will always beat a large group of moderately strong people. Personality matters. The biggest mistake in general that I have made, and I'm trying to correct for that, is to put too much of a weighing on somebody's talent and not enough on their personality. It actually matters whether somebody has a good heart. It really does. And I have made the mistake of thinking that sometimes it's just about the brain. If you are in a race, don't worry about what the other runners are doing. Just run. It must be okay to make false moves. I have not lost a war, but I have certainly lost many battles. Regarding key to success, start somewhere and then really be prepared to question your assumptions. Fix what you did wrong and adapt to reality. I see a potential path for Tesla to be worth more than Apple and Saudi Aramco's combined. This will mean working long hours at high intensity. Only exceptional performance will constitute a passing grade. When something is not working, accept that it is not working, or else you will get fixated on a bad choice. I think there is a good framework for thinking. It is physics. Musk is referring to the ability to visualize something. For example, you can generate a theory or idea. Therefore, you can determine the truth behind your theory and a way to prove it. Given that the rules of physics are constantly evolving, the process is even more fascinating. Work like hell. You have got to invest all your efforts into making it successful. Regardless of which industry you operate in, there are rivals with a similar idea. Therefore, you should work twice as hard as them to capture a bigger share of the market. If they are investing 40 hours a week in their business, you should target 80 to 100 hours. My vision is for a fully reusable rocket transport system between Earth and Mars that is able to refuel on Mars. This is very important. So you don't have to carry the return fuel when you go there. Silicon Valley has some of the smartest engineers and technology business people in the world. You could warm Mars up over time with greenhouse gases. It would take 6 months to go to Mars if you go there slowly with optimal energy cost. Then it would take 18 months for the planets to realign. Then it would take 6 months to get back. Though I can see getting the travel time down to 3 months pretty quickly if America has the will. I would like to fly in space, absolutely. That would be cool. I used to just do personally risky things, but now I have got kids and responsibilities. So I can't be my own test pilot. That would not be a good idea. But I definitely want to fly as soon as it's a sensible thing to do. The rumors of the demise of the US manufacturing industry are greatly exaggerated. It is definitely true that the fundamental enabling technology for electric cars is lithium ion as a cell chemistry technology. In the absence of that, I don't think it's possible to make an electric car that is competitive with a gasoline car. I think most of the important stuff on the internet has been built. There will be continued innovation for sure, but the great problems of the internet have essentially been solved. I am anti-tax, but I am pro-carbon tax. I was born in Africa. I came to California because it's really where new technologies can be brought to fruition. And I don't see a viable competitor. You need to live in a dome initially, but over time you could transform Mars to look like Earth and eventually walk around outside without anything on. So it's a fixer-upper of a planet. Facebook is quite entrenched and has a network effect. It's hard to break into a network once it is formed. You need to be in the position where it is the cost of the fuel that actually matters and not the cost of building the rocket in the first place. I would not say I have a lack of fear. In fact, I would like my fear emotion to be less because it's very distracting and fries my nervous system. If anyone thinks they would rather be in a different part of the history, they are probably not a very good student of history. Life sucked in the old days. People knew very little, and you were likely to die at a young age of some horrible disease. You would probably have no teeth by now. It would be particularly awful if you were a woman. The space shuttle was often used as an example of why you should not even attempt to make something reusable. But one failed experiment does not invalidate the greater goal. If that was the case, we would never have had the light bulb. The lesson of history would suggest that civilization moves in cycles. You can track that back quite far. The Babylonians, the Sumerians, followed by the Egyptians, the Romans, China. We are obviously in a very upward cycle right now, and hopefully that remains the case, but it may not. Land on Mars, a round trip ticket, $500,000, it can be done. If we drive down the cost of transportation in space, we can do great things. In order for us to have a future that is exciting and inspiring, it has to be one where we are a space-bearing civilization. The United States is definitely ahead in culture of innovation. If someone wants to accomplish great things, there is no better place than the US. As you heat the planet up, it's just like boiling a pot. A Prius is not a true hybrid really. The current Prius like 2% electric. It's a gasoline car with slightly better mileage. Mars is the only place in the solar system where it is possible for life to become multi-planetarium. I am personally a moderate and a registered independent. So I am not strongly Democratic or strongly Republican. In order to have your voice be heard in Washington, you have to make some little contribution. I am a Silicon Valley guy. I just think people from Silicon Valley can do anything. Nobody wants to buy a 60,000 electric Civic, but people will pay $90,000 for an electric sports car. Boeing just took $20 billion and 10 years to improve the efficiency of their planes by 10%. That's pretty lame. I have a design in mind for a vertical lift-off supersonic jet. That would be a really big improvement. A battery, by definition, is a collection of cells. So the cell is a little can of chemicals. And the challenge is taking a very high energy cell and a large number of them and combining them safely into a large battery. The revolutionary breakthrough will come with rockets that are fully and rapidly reusable. We will never conquer Mars unless we do that. It will be too expensive. The American colonies would never have been pioneered if the ships that crossed the ocean had not been reusable. Biofuels such as ethanol require enormous amounts of cropland and end up displacing either food crops or natural wilderness, neither of which is good. Government is not that good at rapid advancement of technology. It tends to be better at funding basic research. To have things take off, you have got to have commercial companies do it. Trying to read our DNA is like trying to understand software code, with only 90% of the code riddled with errors. It's very difficult in that case to understand and predict what that software code is going to do. Obviously, Tesla is about helping solve the consumption of energy in a sustainable manner. But you need the production of energy in a sustainable manner. If you want to grow giant redwood, you need to make sure the seeds are okay, nurture the sapling, and work out why it might potentially stop it from growing all the way along. Anything that breaks it at any point stop that growth. I think we are at the dawn of a new era in commercial space exploration. The US automotive industry has been selling cars the same way for over 100 years. And there are many laws in place to govern exactly how that is to be accomplished. Tesla is here to stay and keep fighting for the electric car revolution. With DNA, you have to be able to tell which genes are turned on or off. Current DNA sequencing cannot do that. The next generation of DNA sequencing needs to be able to do this. If somebody invents this, then we can start to very precisely identify cures for diseases. If you had to buy a new plane every time you flew somewhere, it would be incredibly expensive. I am reasonably optimistic about the future, especially the future of United States, for the century at least. Given that this is the first time in 4.5 billion years where it has been possible for humanity to extend life beyond Earth. On the possibility of extending life beyond Earth, it seems like we would be wise to act while the window was open and not count on the fact it will be open for a long time.